Hey there, everyone, and welcome to a special midweek episode of Dice Scum. Name's Adam. I'm by myself for this endeavor, but that's okay because I actually have something that I've been wanting to do low key for a good while now. Welcome to the first of what I'm going to call the grab bag episodes. Basically, whenever someone makes an RPG, sometimes they're very, very short, either because they just cover the basic mechanics that you need, or it's part of a 24-hour challenge, or it's an experimental idea that they just wanted to play with. Either way, these short little booklets usually aren't quite long enough to really do as a stream or in recorded format. We experimented with this a little bit with the Attack of the Fan games because in particular, the Gummies Bears RPG and the Master of Orion RPG were both really short. One of them because that's all you really needed. It was supposed to be a very simple game. And the other being because it was part of what's called a 24-hour game jam. Basically, you try to make an RPG system in the span of 24 hours, which I think is kind of silly, but hey, it works. And no worries, this is not replacing Princess the Hopeful. We will still do a stream on that. It should be set to Sunday, and it might just be as late as 9 o'clock. I am sorry about not giving specific exact times, but, well, life happens. Anyway, the first of our little grab bag episodes is My Brain is a Stick of Butter, a solo game by a guy named Adam. And no, I didn't make this, some other Adam did. The the cover art is interesting. It kind of looks like therapeutic art that you'd see in a hospital. It is of a butter churner, which is fitting because his brain is a stick of butter. That's all I can really say about it. The game's topic is about ADHD. Specifically, the game creator experiences ADHD, and this game is, in his own words, in his own words, this probably isn't a fun game, but I hope it can be an illustrative one. He basically made this game because he wanted to show how ADHD affected him personally. He does warn up front that it doesn't necessarily exist as a universal experience, which is fitting because not everyone experiences ADHD the same way. ADHD being a series of chemical fuck ups in the brain, which cause different effects. Sometimes it's more inattentive, sometimes it's more compulsive or hyperactive, that sort of thing. So, first off, on character creation, not a big fan of the Dutch angle shots for the idea is it's supposed to be disjointed to represent the kind of the mind affecting qualities of ADHD, but it is kind of jarring. I expect Squirrel Killer, for example, to not be a big fan of this because this sort of arrangement can actually probably mess with someone who has dyslexia. So, how does character creation work? Well, you grab the play sheet from itch.io. A D6 is your brain die. You have to have a deck of cards and a pencil. The default is to play as yourself, which not exactly the best idea for a character, but this is supposed to be more of an experimental thing. You can play a fictional character though if you wish, and then you fill out the information. Names and pronouns. Yeah, pronouns. A small portrait, your current job and or career, two important friends or families, a new hobby and an old hobby, and what you do to relax. And then you finally write on a whiteboard because you need a fucking whiteboard for this as well. The last thing you did for each of the four tasks. The four tasks are work, chores, socializing, and enjoyment. This can be as simple as sent email, did dishes, watched TV, called mom. So what's a clock? So here's the play sheets, and this is what it looks like. And these are the pie charts that represents each of the days and tasks. And again, I'm not a big fan of how disjumbled this is, but I think that's the point. I, I think that's the point, and it's not a great setup, I think. When a rule instructs you to tick a clock, fill it into the next segment of the corresponding pie chart, like so. So, how do we play a day? A day in this game is represented by this clock. There are 6 rounds per day, 2 of which will be ideally spent sleeping. Okay, so much like real life, you spend about a third of your time sleeping. To start your day, review your task clocks and decide what you'd like to start on. Search the deck for a card of that suit and put it on top of the discard, then reshuffle the deck. Well, this is already on the clunky side. Generally, I start weekdays at work, so I set my opening task to spade work because if you're wondering, spade is work, club is chores, heart is socializing, and diamond is enjoyment. The first 4 rounds take place during your waking hours, but the final 2 are when sleep beckons. You can choose to continue acting during those hours. Each time you do, mark off a box on the sleep debt tracker. This doesn't have any mechanical effect in the week that you'll play out this game, but the accumulation of sleep debt does catch up with you. Um, no, actually, it will absolutely fuck you up the day you do this, in my experience. So this is a bit incorrect. Once the day is over, mark off its box on the week tracker and clear the ticks on the day clock. Begin the next day once the blah blah blah. That's it. In the closing section, you talk about what the game does. So this isn't really a game. This is more of a, well, it's kind of a game, but not really. This is very much an experimental model, and I don't think it's working. And again, I'm not a fan of, like, I get it's for style, but the style is stylistically not very pleasant. So first, decide if you'd like to divert your attention to a different task than the active one. The active task is always the one corresponding to the suit at the top of the discard pile. If you switch, choose the task you're switching to and pull a number of cards equal to the unfilled ticks in that clock. Huh? Okay, the rules are already confusing, and I hope that's not the point, but it's already, I'm already struggling here. If one of the cards drawn matches the suit of the task you're trying to switch to, then you can do so, no problem. Discard all cards with the one on top. Otherwise, determine the task you most represented by the drawn cards. You choose how to break ties. That task becomes the active task unless you erase one tick from its clock. So I think the idea is you basically burn through the rest of the day just trying to do the other thing. Unless you can erase one tick from a clock, you then continue to the task you were trying to switch to. Write on the whiteboard what you noticed and ignored about the task you erased. Okay, where was I? Once you've established which task clock you're working towards, think about the last thing you did to tick that clock. If you can honestly remember where you were in the task, move to the next step. But if it's something that you've erased from your page and you can no longer remember, erase one tick of that clock to represent that you'll need to retrace your steps. Next, follow the rules on working tasks. I'm going to be honest. I kind of get what's going on, but not really. This doesn't make a lot of sense, and I'm coming from this from a person who has ADHD. Hmm, I think this needed some reworking, pal. No offense. To determine how working on your chosen task goes, roll the brain die and refer to the reference below. So that's the point of the D6. Okay. Brain die reference: 1 is endless distraction, 6 is big time focus. And how does this work? Well, if you get a 6, you mark 2 ticks on the task clock, write what hooked you in for once. If you get 1, you erase the whiteboard, you erase a tick in the current clock, and you have to make up excuses for what pulled your focus away. So using the whiteboard, when writing on the whiteboard, you are detailed or as brief as you like. The important thing is to paint a clear picture to yourself of what you spent that time doing. Use the info you wrote down during character creation as inspiration when thinking about what different tasks are. When erasing the whiteboard, don't pause to reread the whole thing. You just erase it, it's gone. That's what it feels like in my head anytime an enticing enough distraction pulls me away from something I'm doing. I get the mechanical logic, but this game is clunky. In closing, once you've played all 7 games, the game is officially over. Take a moment to reflect on how it went. Take pride in your accomplishments and consider your shortcomings. Look at the state of your 4 clocks and consider what the unfilled sections represent. Are there dishes piled up in the kitchen? Did you go out to eat more than you wanted because you couldn't find time to clean? Did you forget to call family or fall behind at work? Consider how many more clocks you're juggling every day in your real life and let yourself take a little pride in being able to tick any of them on a given day. A quick note: this goofy attempt to model my experience with ADHD only shows one of the many aspects of it. There aren't mechanics for realizing minutes into a conversation you didn't hear anything the other person said, or how people close to you just sort of get used to keeping track of your stuff, or for having idle hands that blah, 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 blah. So I kind of get the logic of how this game works. It's just, it's not very well explained. I feel like you probably should maybe kind of model it more, which he kind of does at the end. He gives you an example of Tuesday, which just, it's a little bit difficult to get my head around. So yeah, all in all, I'm not the biggest fan of this book. I'd say it's playable. I would say it is playable, but I wouldn't rate it much higher than that. So that's the first one that I wanted to show you. The next one that I'm going to show you is Cola Wars, the game of espionage and recipe theft by Evil One. The intro. This is for a contest held by two other people. It took me way too long to finish, so this is a case of a 24 or 48-hour game jam. Here's what the guy had. Maybe next time it'll be eligible, so he didn't quite succeed. So, how does this game work? Well, let's go through the backstory first. In the 80s, the cola industries were being established at lightning speeds, distributing drink after drink to thirsty hippies. Two major players in the industry, Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, were fighting a literal war with advertising. This caused many other brands to be established and take part in this. In 1982, someone claimed to have made the perfect recipe. This caused pure chaos. You're one of the security guards for one of these such businesses. Your job is to protect and guard the recipe, the scientists, and the factory itself. This is just basically the plot of SpongeBob. You got to stop Plankton from getting the Krabby Patty secret formula. You have to lie. While stealing and damaging the factory next door. So you're not only guarding, but you're also sabotaging. This would be like if you just style up to the chum buck and just fuck over Sheldon's day. Your mission is to protect your factory from saboteurs and spies while doing the same to your neighbors. Whoever goes broke first fails while your enemy buys you out. The trick is to know when to defend and when to sneak next door. Each factory has several targets in them. So this game requires a map containing two factories and an alley or so in between. This game is for two players and a DM to watch the action. The game seems to be having a lot more of a spy versus spy feel to it, as that is what I expect it to look like. Players seemingly play a large amount of tricks on each other for soda recipes, and I kind of like that a lot. I always wanted a sort of funny game where people basically play it as a spy and kill each other for such small things. I imagine he'd also really love Spycraft, which, by the way, that's a good game. If you ever wanted to play as a secret agent, I would recommend Spycraft. You could also probably retrofit Cyberpunk to kind of represent that. Now, as for what the factories include, there's the HR guy. That's the man you bring all the items you steal in your runs to enemy factories. He assigns borrowed scientists, enters found recipes, and relabels lost samples. Wherever you take everything, be prepared to hoof it to HR. There's R&D. Scientists work there. Any disturbances may stop their trains of thought entirely. Be sure to keep enemy guards out of here. Samples and scientists are found here, so you actually have to kidnap people. Archives rooms. Computers line the walls of the sanctuary. Here's where a sneaky guard can steal files containing recipes. If your company has no recipes, you can't make cola, so you have to be sure to keep this room protected. Production. This room houses all of the workers and machines. Workers will attempt to ward off enemies by themselves, but you should help them out because they can't work and fight at the same time, and the machines are important. So the character creation system uses his own personal created version called the EMME system. You have 30 points to make a cola guarding machine, and here's the steps. Body type, thin is 5 points, medium is 2, husky is -2. Thin is basically you're skinny, you're able to move quickly, you add movements, but you're easier to kill. Uh, Medium is kind of your bog standard, and then big, that extra mass makes it take the heat and take grinning, but you're not very fast. Despite that, you actually gain no benefits to being fat, which I think is funny. You just get a movement penalty, and you're not harder to kill. That's kind of silly. Body features: you can jog, you can weightlift, movement train, swiftness. So basically, you pick up feats, and you only can have X amount up to 30. Personality types: you can be a gun nut, you can be a Rambo, you can be stealthy, former riot squad, gadget nut, average. You can also be paranoid or ex-police. Paranoid is the only negative personality trait, and you suffer a -1 to all rolls until you've searched the room after you've entered it. Your skills: you can have experience with a variety of weapons. You can have experience with a variety of weapons. You could also just be a splinter psycho, which apparently means you're like a Dracula. You can learn how to be a master of disguise. I'm noticing there's not a lot of things that actually give you negative traits, which I think is interesting. There are a lot of personality traits or skills. That's kind of impressive. But if you're wondering, eventually you go up to 30, and after that you can't pick up any more. As for how the mechanics work, for rolling, it uses a set of d6. Depending on the roll, you will add any bonuses that apply. Say you have a +2 to sneak, and you want to avoid a laser alarm, you roll a 4. That bonus turns into a 6, so it's just a flat bonus. To resist, if you're being rolled against, you can attempt to resist. You roll a die and apply a -2 penalty. Searching is a mechanic he created for this game. If you're in a room unfamiliar, you can roll for search. This is just stealing from the search check of D&D. Hiding and this is just stealing from D&D. There are NPC guards. They have no other skills and are considered average in general. There are also security. These are trained guards. Wooden doors, iron door, a variety of things that these are the equivalent of traps and things that you have to avoid. As for the map, there's 3 areas: red facility, blue facility, and the streets. The streets are in between the 2 factories. Each is separated by a room. Each factory contains a few important rooms like human resources, labs, barracks, lobby, bottling, mixing rooms, archiving, and hallways. As for scientists, every 5 turns, each scientist creates 2 points of research. The team decides together what to spend their RP on. There are several branches of research to be looked into: recipes, arms, and training, because apparently, for cola plants, you have to actually design your own firearms and how to train your guards, which I think is a little silly, but that's fine. Each factory starts with 5 scientists, and if a scientist is killed for some reason, it takes 10 turns to replace. Scientists hate losing comrades, so if one is killed, your entire factory is put on standstill until they are finished grieving for 5 turns, meaning no money is made for either team. As for money, you start with 5,000. Money is made every turn by your soda, created by recipes. Money is lost for a lot of reasons. A scientist costs 1,000. Losing a guard costs 2 or 500, depending on if it was a player or not. Workers only take 100 and take 5 turns to replace. Depending on the recipe, different sums of money are made. Computers take 100 to replace. Doors only cost 20. Vaults or iron doors are replaced by wooden doors. Each player has a personal amount of money and are paid various amounts for various deeds. Your side wins if your company gets 50k or your enemy goes bankrupt. And here's some of the specific ways that you can gain or lose money. If you steal a recipe successfully, you gain a lot. Or if you fail, you gain less. Stealing a scientist is, you can either gain 400 or 200 if you didn't do it. Killing them actually punishes you. Smashing an enemy computer gives you money, but losing a computer loses you. Killing a guard is fine. Getting killed costs you money. Destroying a production machine is a lot. Losing one is less. You gain less than you lose. You lose less than you gain, sorry. Stealing a sample, losing a sample, that's pretty neat. I'm actually going to say that despite being really rudimentary, this actually does make a lot of sense. I think if you tweak this one quite a bit, it'd be pretty good. They also give you different terrains like air ducts, how debris works, cloning. If you're ever killed, remember that the cola industry has a lot to hide, including top secret cloning technology. It takes 3 turns to clone a guard that's died in action. When you're cloned, you have no weapons. That's kind of neat. That's cute. And as for what your weapons are, you start with not a lot. You have no guns available. But as need grows, you'll need weapons to protect your company. And these are the things that you can research. And these are the research paths, which are very clunkily designed, but I do like that he actually kind of kitted them out to show you how it works. As for how the recipe works, you got basic, you can get diet, mind control elixir, NRG, and boosters. Crack in a bottle. Okay, not bad. They should have a new formulation, which actually is cheaper, but like could also punish you because it's not as good. Bit of a nod to New Coke, which was actually pretty good, but they changed the old formula, which made people angry. Training takes a lot of research points, by the way. Psy course, you can gain psychic powers. That's cute. This actually kind of reminds me of a very rough draft of Ninja Burger, and I kind of like that. Now that I'm aware of how kind of crazy this is supposed to be, yeah, this works. And here's what the recipes work as. Basic gives you 50 a turn. Diet gives you 100 a turn. Mind control gives you 200 a turn, and your enemy gets negative 100. NRG, you found that putting less than a lethal does to make people react much better. You gain a firearm reflex roll. You can boost it. You can build crazy drinks, which make you essentially get bullet time. Crack in a bottle, and reflexes elixir. And these are the trainings. Some skills. You can gain psychic powers, which is pretty great. Workers do actually start with a small handgun, so kind of like a 90. It's kind of like an 80s action film where people just spontaneously gain firearms and kung fu powers. How the battles work, some sabotage you can do as examples, some map features which are kind of critical. And last but not least, creativity is kind of needed to really make this work because you kind of have to design everything. There can be more teams, which means you can add even more sides. I kind of low key like this book. It's clunky, but this is the thing. Compared to say Empire Satanis, I actually think this one has a lot of potential. You can actually make a pretty fun game out of this. I don't think it would ever do amazingly well, but if you can codify the rule system, make it a little cleaner, give you visual examples of how the game would work, maybe an example map, you could definitely sell this. I think it would actually do really well if you could sell it as like a PDF, or honestly, you could convert this into a European style board game. Actually, now that I think about it, because that's actually something really neat. Is that in Europe, board games are a lot more popular in some respects than tabletop, and some of those are very involved and very very elaborate. And I feel like this is the sort of thing that would do a lot better as a board game than it would as an RPG. All in all, I'd rate this one as actually, since it's a little clunky and it's kind of rough and it's very clearly not quite finished, I'd probably rate this, especially since it probably wasn't play tested all that much. I'd rate it as a decent, high decent. It has a lot of potential. So for our last book, I'm going to show you a little 24-hour RPG called Irradiated Fur. So the way this works is, imagine human civilization at its peak. 10 billion people well fed, educated, and given equal representation and universally equal rights. They can visit any state in the world for a half-week salary, choose any of 1,000 artists of 1,000 different TV stations, blah, 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 blah. There are people like you, the altered ones, were at the time created for vanity, for pleasure, for fashion, occasionally even for medical or therapeutic reasons. However, it was not common. Why spend a year's worth of income when the newest Star Wars remake is about to come out? That sounds like a fate worse than death, no offense. Imagine this paradise without need or want, dead in a day. 4 generations ago, in the early 21st century, your ancestors were in the middle of a holy war. Technology being what it was, there was no other real reason to go to war. All of the great weapons were brought out to clean out the heretics. First, they used nukes, then they ran out of nukes, and they used diseases. When they ran out of diseases, they used napalm and gas. When they ran out of gas, they sent their soldiers in. That's not how war works, but go on. And about by this time, they had more nukes and napalm and mustard gas ready to go. When the nukes rained down, it was hell. While patriotic messages blared out how we were winning, as no doubt the other sides were all doing, people looted, raped, and killed. The federal government was reduced to a few manned satellites and an NPR station operating out of Barrow, Alaska, within a matter of days. No one was prepared, or at least prepared enough for the reality of what was about to happen. Nobody was prepared for actual anarchy, and that's when the utility of being half human and half animal became apparent. Fur kept the retro codes warm on cold nights. Instinct showed them tactics for survivals unmodified humans did not think of or could not stomach doing. And claws were better than fingernails in a fight. So this is an even worse version of Wraithathu, as far as I'm concerned. This is a far nastier version of Wraithathu. No thank you. I'm already kind of tuning out because it has the same bad energy. It is now sometime in the early 22nd century. Survival of the fittest had 4 generations to work, and humanity's long sunset is being overtaken by the rising move of the furry race. Ah, God, this is already embarrassing. This is already embarrassing, and this is just the intro. There's a new world awaiting people like you. Go take a chance and do a flip in Minecraft. Holy shit. Oh. So elements of a good irradiated fur game. There are no good elements of this game. I can already tell you. Like we just started and it's already terrible. This makes Wraithathu look good. Irradiated Fur is a furry post-apocalypse game. Any game of Irradiated Fur should have elements of both in and about equal quantities. With that in mind, here's a pile of spare parts that should give GMs ideas to work with. Oh, okay, so you're just gonna you're just gonna suggest ideas. See, with the Cola Wars, that's more cute, and it's because they established how the game works. This is just, oh yeah, I stole all this. I stole all this. Ancient catacombs that turn out to be sewers, military bases, an amusement park, bar brawls, coming to terms with one's partial humanity, discovering ancient caches of technology, fighting for the pack. Doesn't anyone here speak English? Highway. Oh, this is all terrible. These are all terrible. This is just random gibberish. Look at how fucking long this goes. Oh, oh, it's like a paragraph from hell. No, incorrect. Let's just move on to character creation. That's terrible. It's just random things that you see from like Mad Max or from any other post-apocalypse anything. So character creation. There are 5 stats: agility, reflexes and coordination; charm, how charismatic and tactful you are; health, which is your fortitude and constitution; intelligence, brains, your civil mind; strength, bodily strength and physical toughness; secondary areas, equipment, how much stuff you can buy; race, your feral mind, just how animal are you; skills, how talented you are, not very. And it looks like they're using Savage Worlds as the template because you have D4s, D6s, D8s, D10s, and a D12 to assign among the 8 areas. NPCs have 2, 3, 2, and 1 D10. Don't you feel special? No, I don't. I really don't. So, derived stats. Healing rate, equal to half your health die minus 1. You heal this much stun every hour and this many wounds every day. Initiative. Your initiative is equal to your agility die plus your race die, plus your intelligence die size plus half your charm die. Oh wow, that's no, no, no. Just here's what you do, okay? Because that's too many things that you have to factor in because that's stupid. Uh, just use fucking agility. Just use fucking agility. Maybe throw in race, and that's it. Incorrect. Movement equals to you move in meters in 6 seconds. It is equal to agility die plus health die plus strength die divided by 2. So if you have an agility of D4, D6, and strength D12, you'd have a movement of 11 meters. Oh, okay, so you factor in the max results. I don't like how these are calculated at all. Soak, your ability to resist non-lethal damage. It's equal to your strength die divided by 2. So strength is kind of your low key. Strength is probably one of the better things you can get besides just straight up initiative. Wounds. Oh no, strength is easily the best fucking stat because if you're wondering, it's used for like most of your derived stats. That's kind of dumb. No offense, but that's kind of dumb. So race. These are the races that you can pick. Badgers get feral, melee, and willpower, radiation resistance of D4. Bats get climbing, hunting, intimidation, and stealth and sonar. Subtract 3 from your wounds. You may not have a strength of D12. Bear, you get hunting and weightlifting. You also add bear divided by 2 to your soak, bear to your stun, and bear 2 to your wounds. May not have a strength of D4. Birds, you get these, blah, blah. It's just. Oh, apparently you can also be a dragon or a dwarf or an elf. Holy shit. Holy shit. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, also, Skunk has the most amount of details put into it because, of course, they fucking do. They gain spray. I'm not going into detail about that. No fucking thank you. So, here's the skills you get. You get acrobatics, body hardening, being very fucking tough. Yeah, just randomly throwing in swear words in your book makes you really cool. Especially since you didn't do that at any point prior to that. That's high quality. Climbing, computers, diplomacy, domestic, it's all the skills. You get Feral, which is the special skill, being able to rely on your animal instincts. Unlike most skills, Feral is based on your race die. You also gain Fix It, how to repair something. Any other really weird ones? Occult, knowing what rituals do what and what not to touch. So apparently there's also magic, I guess, even though there shouldn't be. So you can also pick up perks by taking flaws. So some of the perks you get are armor, claws, extra arms, fast healing, high pain threshold, howl, hybrid, which means you can make your stupid OC, lightning reflexes, lucky, prehensile tail, radiation, blah 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 blah. Oh hey, you can be a tar. Cool.
I am dead inside.
I fucking hate this book. Anyway, you can also add wings to make your character even more nonsense. As for flaws, you can have anosmia, atavism, which just means you can randomly murder people. Blind, can't speak, deaf, distinctive features, hermaphrodite. Okay. I non-anthropomorphic. I, I'm rapidly losing the ability to want to even read this. Holy shit. All right, let's just move on to personality. How do they talk about that? After you've got the numbers done, it's time to think about what you want your character to be like. Oh, it's just giving you questions to kind of devise your character. Okay. Save your ass dice. Save your ass dice. Every game you begin with 5 save your ass dice. These are the equivalent of fate points. These are rerolls essentially. One each of D4, D6, D8, D10, and D12. You can spend these on any rolls before or after. You can spend no more than one per roll, and once spent, it's gone for the rest of the game. You get these back at the beginning of every session or when the GM says so. Lucky Perk gives you more. In addition to just boosting rolls, you can use the save your ass dice like so. For healing wounds, you can use one, and if you roll 5 plus, you can heal 1 wound. Not dead yet, spend your best save your ass dice when you kick the bucket and add 1 to the roll for every other unused die. If you get 10 or higher, they left for dead, but you come back. Roll with the blow. You may reduce any damage for the value of a save your ass die roll. Determine the number of wounds based on the new amount of damage actually done. I guess that you just roll it and then you need the number, or you. This one's a little bit clunky. It's a bit unclear. Basic tests, nothing fancy. Roll lots of dice. Try to get a high number. Okay. Combat initiative. Roll your. Okay, so this is how combat works. You get initiatives and you have actions. You have 1 action around. Normally, you would want to do more than 1 action. You're at a -1 die penalty to all actions, which I hope. Naturally, this makes doing too many actions impossible. Yeah, but you can have people rig it. You can have people rig these things and just make it so that you just kick ass. Because if you get your stats high enough for that one thing, you can do up to 3 or 4. And fuck you if they get lucky. As for dealing damage, you primarily deal stun damage. It's equal to the margin of success you get hit by plus whatever damage dice are for the attack. Lethal is dangerous. Lethal first deal stun equal to the margin of success plus whatever damage die for the attack is. Subtract any armor, and then if even 1 point went through, deal 1 wound. Miscellaneous, adrenaline wears off, going defensive, hurting, KO'd, and movement. And here's some of the equipment you can get. To buy equipment, you need money. Take the die you assign to equipment in character creation and look it up here. I don't get how this works. My guess is that you can only get up to your D stat in terms of that. I don't know. Here are some weapons that you can add. You got knives, swords, axes, machete. You get a lot of options. You can get a sniper rifle. Sniping, accuracy +4, damage 4d10 lethal. You can also get a claymore mine, 2d8 plus 2d10 lethal. You also have armor, which has 4 stats, coverage and maneuverability, then stun absorb and lethal absorb. Armor protects on any attack with a number equal to or less than its coverage. Maneuverability is the penalty to dodge. The number before the slash is how much damage it absorbs. The number after is how much damage it absorbs from lethal attack. So you can get leather jackets, sports gear, plate armor, forge plate armor, EOD suits. And as for others, you get airtight chests, batteries, books, deck of cards, dice. These are just like random stuff you can kind of pick up. Uh, it's pretty clear that this is kind of borrowing heavily from Savage Worlds mixed with a little bit of D&D and also mixing in with a little bit of the World of Darkness from what I can tell. It's very clearly kind of borrowing from all aspects of, well, popular games. As for how survival works, falling deals 1 point of stun damage per meter fallen for fairly mild surfaces, or 1 point of lethal if you fall on something you shouldn't. Fire deals d4 stun damage to 1d12 lethal every round. There's also poison, radiation, obviously, and suffocation. And as for experience, this is an RPG built for one-shots or short series. It's not meant for campaign play, mainly because that would require more thinking about it. And this was done in 24 hours. I will be fair, and this was done in 24 hours. Let's be kind. I should be kind in that respect. I just think the concept's not very good. Oh God, and they have slang. So here are some of the slang terms for those of you curious. Fason, a fashion-based morph. Furson, any animal-based person. No. Pause up, dead. Retro code. Ugh. Vaulted. Oh, that's just stealing from Fallout, just straight up. I just spent about 14 hours of the last 20 working on this darn thing, so give me 30 seconds of your time at least. I made it through the day on bratwurst, diet cola, garlic potatoes, scrambled eggs, oranges, and crackers. Music on playlists as they wrote DDR, Bubblegum Crisis, and the soundtrack to Furry Fantasies. He wrote this on his mom's birthday. Oh. Nobody should write more than 5 pages per day if they want the results to be any good. And 2 should be the limit for sane people. But hey, I got half of the 24-page assignment done, and that's not bad. Eh, fair enough. So, in conclusion, I'm going to be kind, and this was a 24-hour sort of concept. It's just I think the concept's trash. Uh, the big problem is when you open up with lore, and the lore's just kind of painful. It kind of ruins anything I'd probably like. I also think straight up the mechanics for how your derived stats work way too clunky. They're way too mechanically clunky, and given that this was just done for a 24-hour jam, it would need playtesting to really work. All in all, I'd probably rate this one as a playable. I'd rate it as a higher playable than my brain is a stick of butter, but that ain't really saying much. And with that, it looks like that we're finished with our little round robin. So all in all, My Brain is a Stick of Butter was an experimental RPG that I think doesn't really work as a game, and it's just kind of a bit of a pain to understand just from reading it because everything's on a slant, which is artistic, but it's also not very good for readability, and the rules are not exactly clear, so that's a low playable. Cola Wars, which is a great concept. It was only given 24 hours, and I think it did a pretty good job. With further tweaking, it would definitely be a pretty fun board game rather than an RPG book, I think. So I'm going to rate that one a medium decent, mid decent. And last but not least, Irradiated Fur, probably the most polished of the ones done. But the problem is, it is also the least interesting concept to me. So I can't really rate it higher than playable, especially given that the derived stats are a pain in the ass to calculate because you're assembling different dice and then having them. Which, admittedly, it's not that much math, but if you want a relatively rules light system, especially since you're kind of aping from Savage Worlds and a little bit of Chronicles of Darkness, you probably shouldn't go too complicated on the derived stats. That's just me. And all in all, if you really like this kind of concept, I have several more of these sort of short, weird experimental books. I can feel free to show you more of them. The next episode of this sort of thing would be Space Mice, and I think I might actually throw Giant Monster Attack. It's long enough that it could probably be its own episode, but given the relative lack of interest from the other Dice Scummers, I think it'd be probably better to be put into this grab bag. So with that in mind, have an excellent rest to your week, and we are going to cover Princess the Hopeful. See ya.